Hey, this is Naima, and you're listening to Let's Talk every Fridays on Amazon Music, Google, Apple, and Spotify. Today we have a special guest, Joel Cross, by the name of Asoulcalledjoel, where he has created a beautiful soul community with daily meditation, sharing circles, and workshops. He is a meditation teacher, a musician, and he's here to help us define what is your true, authentic self. Hi, Joel. How is your heart today?
I am so good. My heart is full and grounded. Thank you.
Good.
How's your heart?
Where do I start? I feel like I'm a little less grounded than you are today.
That's okay.
But in this moment, it is still full, just a little heavy.
Okay.
I will do my part to ground myself. I need to be one of your morning's meditation sessions to get back on track with your soothing voice and your calm energy. Joel, how did you establish your meditation practice? What inspired you to get started?
Oh, it's been a little while now, maybe some, 13, 14 years ago. And I was at a turning point in my life, in my mid-20s, and I had never meditated before, but I felt intuitively meditation was everywhere. You hear somebody say it in the coffee shop, but there was a certain resonance, or a friend would mention it, or I'd be scrolling online and see something about meditation. And so intuitively, I was drawn to it at that point in my life, and I'm so glad I heeded that call. And that led me to have my first meditation without any instruction, without any training, or I just wanted to honor that intuition and be in flow with it. And so that led me to go on YouTube, find some meditation music, something very grounding. And it was kind of one of those droney kind of things. And then I found a corner of my room. I could not even sit cross-legged at the time because I was so stiff in my body.
It's not easy to sit cross-legged, let me tell you. Not easy at all.
Exactly. That was very true in my life then. and so I just, sat as I could, kind of had a pillow in the corner of my room, back against the wall. And what came to me was, breathing in, I'm going to focus on whatever thought comes up. And as I exhale, I'm going to let that thought go. I visualized it leaving my body with the breath. And so I did that for a little while. Maybe about 15 minutes in, I had no more thoughts. And then I was kind of taken on this whole journey. It was this extreme lucid visualization of kind of coming down on a ray of light to the earth and seeing how that light was hitting all of these people, all of the plants, and the plants were absorbing it and turning it into nutrients and food, and it became oxygen, that same energy, and the energy was being inhaled by all of the people and all the beings, and I could feel myself as that energy moving through all beings. And so that ray of light became a kind word to a friend. It became a desk that someone was working on. It became, for someone else, a moment of frustration, and that frustration turned into a realization and an education and a more vitalized life. And I just had this profound connected oneness experience. And then once that ended, the last part of my meditation, I was sitting there and I saw this spherical orb of light of all colors transmuting and rotating on an axis, but also within itself. And I felt so much peace. I felt like my whole body was radiating with this energy. And I remember finishing that meditation, like, I don't know what just happened. I feel super light. That was amazing. Is this what people have been talking about? And
the whole oneness. And I got this vibe. It's like, the light.
Yeah, exactly.
True enlightenment is what they call it. True true enlightenment you had in that moment?
I don't know what to call it, but that was the experience I had, and it was marvelous. I remember telling my roommates at the time, guys, you have to meditate, and they were looking at me like, no, man, I don't want to do that.
Like they're probably like, dude, where have you been? What light have you been envisioning?
Yeah, they're like, are you okay? But
I love that.
Yeah, it was a really powerful moment for me, and that obviously set the foundation for exploration in this space of, okay, what actually is meditation? What's happening in my body? What's happening in my mind? Where did this practice come from? And I just started, looking for any resources I could find online, finding books, and Thich Nhat Hanh, The Miracle of Mindfulness was one of the first books that I read. Yeah, and that set a beautiful foundation in the Vietnamese Buddhist tradition of meditation that really opened me up to a whole new way of being.
Was this what continued your practice into studying further into the meditation world, to establish yourself, to connect meditation with music?
So there wasn't a very specific mission. It was just a curious intuition, and so I would read Miracle of Mindfulness and go through the practices and noticed how my life started changing. And then not long after that, I had an injury with my hand as a musician, as a guitarist. Yeah, and so I went from playing very fast music to not be able to play much of anything without pain. And it was a long year and a half of recovery and physical therapy. But through that time, a friend showed me this book called Effortless Mastery. And it's written by Kenny Warner, an amazing jazz pianist who teaches at Berkeley. And his premise for that book is that everything that we create should be as effortless as breathing. So if you think about any other thing on this planet, the plants, they're there, everything comes to them, and they exude the brilliance of what it means to be whatever species of plant they are. Same thing for other animals, right? They're not going around thinking and second guessing and asking, am I good enough? Am I worthy? Can I do that? Trying to get permission from others. They're just existing effortlessly, right?
That is true. I never looked at it that way. It's so true. They're doing what they need to do. They're not hesitating. They're not second guessing. While as humans, we are not even realizing that it's not part of how life works.
Exactly.
That is such a profound point. It makes sense. Like, click, lock everything. Every door's wide open. No. My overthinking mind is going to go hyperdrive later tonight. That's for sure. Because I'm like, what happened here? Oh, man. Now I'm going to, reevaluate everything here. Which is good. I think that's part of life. It makes us question things. It makes us investigate. It makes us understand everything to a point where you just have to understand for the sake of understanding.
Yeah. So it's this beautiful thing that we've been given, a highly developed, prefrontal cortex, right? So that we can think differently than the other species.
Right.
But the thing is, we are taught everything except how to use our mind in that way, right? So how to find that temperance, how to find that balance. And so this book, Effortless Mastery, very specifically designed for musicians and jazz improvisers, but it's relative to all people, no matter what you create, no matter what your artistic medium is. And going through these meditations that are paired with the literature, it basically puts you in this incubator. And so he's intuitively playing jazz piano and guiding you through these practices. And so much of the practice is simply visualizing this experience of, in the case of a musician, being on a world-renowned stage like Carnegie Hall, and the most beautiful sound is coming from your instrument, and you're not doing anything but breathing, right?
I feel like I need a moment. a visual person. I'm a visual person.
Yeah, I'm
so
curious.
it's like just that. I feel like I'm in that moment, and I can feel that moment. And that's a beautiful moment. So mine, other than doing my podcasting, I'm also an artist. I'm a painter. And the feeling, people don't understand when you look at the world, everybody has their own vision of what the world looks to them, right? Someone can say, the world looks a little bland. For me, when they ask me, what is, I'm looking at a field, for example, everyone's like, it's a field. It's a normal field. I see different shades of colors, blending, swirling, coming together, and light and energy. This is what I see, and this is what I paint. So people are amazed by what I see to what I paint. They're like, how are you, And I feel like with you, Joel, that's how you are with your music. The way you play, to anybody, it could be, well, he's just playing his guitar. But when you play your guitar, it's like my soul tells me, nah, girl, you gotta come over here and sit down and you gotta listen. There's a story there. And it's such an odd feeling to have when you're playing your guitar. Say, take a moment for yourself and listen to your heart space. And this is where usually I know where you say if there's resistance, let it be,
Yeah.
And for me, for some reason, no resistance. It's like my heart's like, I got you, girl. So here's a thing we noticed. you gotta go take a break. Go do what you like. And I'm thinking, wow, this is what? Okay, cool. Let me do that. But the question that you have, how is your heart? It makes me feel human. Because I'm always using logic. I'm always using my mind all the time, running around, doing what I need to do, not realizing our hearts and minds are connected.
Right.
So when you ask that question, how is your heart? It's that pause, I guess. It's that pause you get. You're like, okay, take a pause and listen to yourself. Where in society, we don't have that time to do it because we're in such a overflow of, we have to do so many things. We have to work. We have to pay the bills. We have families. There's nowhere in there that says, take a moment to pause and listen to your heart and breathe. And I find with your meditation, it's such a big welcoming, joyful experience to have in our lives because it's so important to have that impact, especially when you just started on something you believe in and creating this beautiful soul community that you just started up the beginning of this year. And now you're up to, I don't know, I think we're at 10 months. Well, October's, 10 months.
Yeah, right at it.
What allowed you to feel, okay, let me start this. Let me do this to build up a community for everybody. What was the thought process for that?
Yeah, so it's a culmination of my experience from that moment, that first meditation,
Right.
and knowing what it was doing for me, but not having the words to really express it, like trying to, how do you tell somebody, I can tell you that story, but the experience of it, it shifts your perception of reality. When you get a visceral experience in your body of the oneness of the world and how our thoughts impact our existence and how it actually shapes our state of being, right? And as you're describing with your artwork, how you see the world, you can see a landscape or a room or a space and you see such vibrant energy and colors and you paint it and it's beautiful, right? And so each of us has that thing that we're doing where we are adding to what we see, right? Our projection, or it's the way that the light shines through us, right? And so that gets me back to this whole thing with the meditation of like being at Carnegie Hall and just breathing. The breath of life moving through you creates the music, it creates the art, it creates your mothering, it creates your fathering, it creates your friendships, right? And so when I first found meditation and realizing that social media was one of the most pervasive avenues of our experience that allows a lot of these patterns of overthinking or perceiving life in a very narrow way to exist and be permeated, I was like, there has to be a better way, right? And so at the time I had this idea called love is ... which is where you would post what love is, right? So that you're creating and fostering more love. I didn't have the courage, the technological capacity, or anything really at that point to move forward with that idea. But I knew that I wanted it. And so as I continued on my journey, you know, now it's 10, 12 years later, I'm at a different space where I've been through a lot of things, and I've learned a lot of things about meditation and about myself, and feeling intuitively drawn that now is the time to do it. So, you know, my idea around it is this whole thing where you're just effortlessly breathing. The heart has all of the information you need, right? So it's the first thing that is seen as a proof of life, like when you're in the mother's womb and you go to the doctor's office, they listen for the heartbeat, right? Well, it's alive. It's something in there. There's an intelligence there that develops long before your brain, right? It's a foundational intelligence. And so tapping into the heart each day, like you said, I remember that I'm a human.
That's the key point.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we go through this world thinking that we're machines. We don't say it that way, but that's how we act. We try to program ourselves in all of these ways, and we try to, okay, you tell me what to do. Where's my orders? Where's my directive? What's the algorithm to live this quote unquote happy life, or this greatest life as Joel or Naima, when in reality, the reason we're here is for the unknown. The reason we're here is for the mystery and the curiosity and the expressive expansion of our soul's identity. And the guide along this path is within. It's always been within, right? It's the same thing that was the proof of life, is the sustainer of life, is the expander of life. So taking that time to check in with your heart, right? You immediately pause from that pattern, right? And you go, huh. And then a lot of people will say, oh, I'm having tears. Why am I crying? And
that's a big one. Yes,
yeah.
The tears just comes right out. It's like involuntary. And I'm thinking, why? Why though? What's happening here? What's going on?
Well, I'll tell you, it's many people get on social media to distract from those feelings, that heaviness. They're not present. It's how we go absent, is this busy mind. We resist our emotional experience. So when you actually tune in an indirect way where you don't know that it's your emotions, because even asking, we're so used to guarding ourselves. If I said, how do you feel? You would have a different experience. But how's your heart? The heart immediately is seen, heard, and so it goes sad. Let it out, right? Or maybe you're happy, or maybe you're working through something that's very complex and doesn't have words. It's very layered.
Yes. Or the big hug. One of the feelings I always get is a hug. Every time where I hear, what is your heart tells you? And automatically I just get this hug. And I'm like, that's exactly what I needed today. That's what I needed today.
That's beautiful.
So, and it's like, and it's so weird because I don't know if anyone believes in coincidence or whatnot. I do. But whenever I have that feeling like, that hug was what I needed, my son will come in and give me a hug. And I was like, what? I was like, are you connected? What's going on here? How did you know? So, and kids give the best hugs. Because there's nothing there. For them, it's like love, pure love.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's it though. It's pure love. So when you check in with your heart and you start to move through those layers that may be on the top, right? Like the frustration, the sadness, or just this hug, right? Underneath it is that pure love, the pure loving intention that you came here with, right?
Right.
and becoming present to that pure love in each moment is the key, right? It liberates you. It releases you from any condition, right? Our biggest struggle in this life is that we have so many conditions and expectations on everything, right? And so it's not to be confused with morality or ethics, but I'm talking about the conditions we place on every aspect of our life. Or we're running late, we're on time, we got to have this kind of coffee, we got to have this thing or that thing to be happy, when really happiness is a state of being, and what happens on that from the outside in is not the same thing. So when you get to tune into that love and that pure essence of who you are, life gets a lot simpler, because it's like, oh, what do I need to know in this moment? What do I need to do right now? And the heart expresses quite clearly, love, be here with this person. Yeah, there's all these other things to do, but are those more important than the way that you show up with the beautiful souls around you? No, right? And it's grounded and it's tempered. And I think more importantly, there's also this aspect of this authentic self that we were talking about that emerges from showing up in that way. You stop, trying to protect and prevent or control and manipulate, and you simply exist as you are from that place of love. And then naturally you start to realize, oh, I don't even actually like that person. We have maybe a trauma bond, or, or maybe, right?
Yes.
I actually want to create this thing in my life. And I was doing that because my parents were so heavy-handed about this other idea. And, once you begin to get with your feelings and not with your thoughts, all of these thoughts, someone else injected in your mind, then it becomes quite simple. And we forget that life actually can be simple if we approach it from a place of love and openness, instead of all of these rules of the linear mind. And so the Beautiful Souls community is really about recognizing the beauty of each soul, and also honoring what I've always felt as an empath is how much suffering, needless suffering, that we experience because we get stuck in the egoic mind. And so Beautiful Souls is essentially a place to reconnect to the heart, right? So that authentic self can bloom, right? To create liberation. And just going inward through meditation, you start to learn all the places where you may not be as liberated. And so you start to work with them through sincere contemplation and watering those seeds in the heart space. And that's really what that place is about. We get to do that together.
I love that. That's awesome. Wow. It's amazing. What is the most joyous memory that you have that you would like to share with us?
Joyous. I have so many. I think the most prominent one for me is, I got a divorce a few years ago and transitioned into this life I'm living now from New York City. And at the middle of that, I stayed with my sister for a time and her two daughters, my nieces. I love them so much. And I've been meditating a lot more than I was. I was doing like 4 or 5 hours a day just to make it through the day because there was a lot of heaviness.
Of course.
And I had the space to myself. My sister and her girls had gone out for the evening, and I thought I was going to watch like the latest Marvel film. I don't even remember which one it was. But
you got to think back the year, so you're like, what was it for that year?
It's probably an Avenger or something. And
Good choice.
I had meditated earlier, had dinner, and then I just made a big old thing of tea and sat down. And before the film even got going, I had this profound experience of joy and connection. And I just started laughing because I could see the miracle of everything. And so I'm looking around my sister's living room, and I'm looking at, my niece's artwork from school, and it's bringing me so much joy because I know that this isn't just crayons on paper. this is the energy of her brilliant soul expressing itself freely and authentically without
Yes.
being tainted by this overthinking thing that most of us adults do, right? And then I also know that this is the beautiful intelligence and genius of a tree transmuted by an individual who created paper and figured that out, right? And then I see the same thing with the television and all the individuals that came together to form the materials and create the chips and the connectors and the cables and the internet. And I'm just laughing because I realize that I'm living in a miracle. And it becomes so mundane at times. We can forget and take for granted even the technology we have right now to connect from different parts of the world.
Yes. Yes. I mean, technology, I find there's pros and cons. The key one, what you just mentioned, connection with a lot of people from different parts of the world. The other side, not so good, is especially that the younger generation are becoming addicted to it. But I think it's just learning the balance.
Yeah, temperance. It's just temperance. And I think that's the other part. It's with anything, you know, too much is too much.
It's too much.
Too little leaves you longing for that balance, right?
Yeah.
And learning within yourself to find that temperance, right, is really the key, and maintain that balance. But yeah, that was maybe my most joyous experience.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
great. That's great. When it comes to, especially when you're saying about your niece's painting, like I know my son has his few paintings where I labeled the age and the year, and it's hanging on this. He has this little nook where in the hallway before he goes in his room, and it's all along the walls by age. And he's like, "Mom, you need to like get rid of this because I'm like a man now." And I told him, art is art. I said, this could sell for $1 million. You never know. Fantastic work. So, and he's like, I don't know what you see, Mom. Because his creative line is not art, believe it or not, is rapping.
Oh,
Music.
awesome.
And I
Yeah.
didn't even think about how he got to that direction. And he loves drums. You won't admit it to anybody. He keeps it hidden because he's like, I don't want people to know. And he's obsessed with, of course, his age, basketball. That's his thing, basketball. He's cool. He got basketball. He's the coolest kid now. And you did touch up a little bit about being authentic. What is your definition of being your authentic self?
Yeah, the authentic self. So if I could, I think a lot in images. And so that's one of the reasons it takes me time. Because what came to mind is pure light from the sun coming through. And then a prism, right?
Oh.
So you remember those prisms that we used to have in grade school?
Yes, and they bring
Okay.
out that rainbow effect.
Right. And so when you shine the light through and it's clear, there's no distortions in the prism, you'll get the full spectrum of the rainbow on the other end, right? And so what I think about for each individual being the authentic self is having full access to the full frequency, vibration of your experience without feeling fear, without feeling doubt, without feeling stuck, but all the light shines through. So being inauthentic would have a measure of distortion in some colors being blocked, if not all. Whereas being truly authentic is showing up with all the colors active, right? And so now that I'm thinking about it this way, another way to think about it is the energy centers, right? They're all connected, right? The seven
Yes,
energy
from
centers
starting
in the
from
body.
the crown, working your way down, yes.
Right. So, in each one of those colors representing a different part of our existence, from being connected to the earth, to our creativity, to our confidence, to the heart, to expression, to intuitive knowing and connection to the divine.
Of course.
Right? And so knowing what that means for each one of us, we're all very unique type of prism. So living in a way that's very natural and not normal, but natural is key. What's natural for you. And that takes a little effort. But I hope that answers your question.
It does. I love it because like you're doing it from the visual. I'm like, yes, okay. My science class images came to my mind. Science experiments, biology. You're like, okay, but that's a great way of looking at being authentic with the prism and the light, because that is the best way to understand how it works to be. And that's a great way, a great example of seeing it. Thank you. Because I'm realizing maybe this is where society, where sometimes maybe we're not ready to listen to it, understanding, having love for you and love for others, because, maybe they're going through something within themselves that they're still trying to maneuver and figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
But just hearing that, I feel like it's such a great example to show this is how you could be you.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I'm definitely going to use that to explain it to my son, because I'm like, that's the perfect example. And it simplifies it in such a way that it makes 100% sense. And it just paints a bigger picture of how you can be you without any struggles, without any limitation, any obstacles, I love that. I love that. One of the things I wanted to ask you, because I know you brought up divorce, and I know that's a hard. I went through a divorce. I understand. It's not it's not an easy process, but you do learn more about yourself. I truly believe.
Certainly.
What was the one thing you learned about yourself during that process?
Oh, I have mountains of information, but you want one thing?
I could say top 5, but let's go with one.
One thing I learned about myself.
Nope, it seems like the crows have an answer for you.
They do. I think what comes to mind is, I think I was a bit naive going into that marriage. And I thought that, if I loved her hard enough or deep enough or long enough, things would work. And I think, more simply put, what I learned is that teamwork, I'm not Superman one, but right, but the, waking up to the fact that teamwork, like actually having someone who, when you're in an argument, sees the issue as in front of both of you, and you're sitting next to each other, versus pointing and going, you're the issue, right?
That's a hard one.
Right?
Yes.
And that's a big challenge, but that's one of the biggest learnings I have from that experience as divorce. And another one is just my own resilience. There were definitely very low moments where I struggled to find the bright side of that experience. And having gone through that and experiencing some of my greatest fears and coming out on the other side better and stronger, being free from those fears, I learned that the resilience of the heart is infinite. That's what I learned. The resilience of the heart is infinite. The shadow is very finite. So if I can stay connected to the heart and keep the heart open, I can move through any experience, even some of the most challenging things.
They say, they go, amen, preach. Yes, Joel, yes. And I get what you mean, because it's that big word of kindness, right? One of the things I've learned is when it comes to marriage, that's what it is, marriage. It's not a contract. It's a love connection. You met someone, you want to spend your time and be with that person. It means, yo, you're going to be my bestie for life. We're going to do some shenanigans, and we're going to get through a lot of stuff. And we're going to figure it out. That's what marriage is. Anyway, my understanding. Apparently, that's not what people think. So I'm going, no. And I think this is why being the true, authentic version of yourself helps, because I think if people pull away that onion peel of, ego and, expectations and other things, this is where love will always win in the end, right? But it's also hard work.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. I think, I work with seniors as well. And this is where they tell me stories. I've been married for 60, 70 years. I've been married 80. I said 80 years. Come on, that's a lie. Come on. You started dating at 13? How did that work? Explain to me. I'm like, there's something doesn't work. The math doesn't add up for me. And I have this one resident. She's 103 years old, 104. And I said, how did you do it? And she said, compromise. She's like, there's days that I did not like my husband. I hated him. I did not like him. I said, really? That bad? She's like, of course. There's times that he can be a big bully. And I told him, and sometimes he's stubborn and he's trying to figure out his way. But she's like, but you have to compromise and you have to have grace. And she's like, that's marriage. She's like, now she's like, nobody understands it. It's you swiping on technology. You're already looking at their appearance reading, but do you understand their soul? Do you understand their heart? Do you understand who they are? Right?
Yeah.
So it's like the little things she's explaining to me. I'm going, wow, that's what it means? I didn't even understand that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's
powerful.
how it works. I came from divorced parents. And it's hard because growing up, I didn't have that kind of a, how does it work? I don't know how it works. Right? So listening to the seniors, they're my guidelines. I'm like, okay, girl, tell me what else you got? I have one, she never married. She never had kids. She never married. She's 90 years old. And she's like, you need to party a lot, drink wine, and just have fun. And I'm going, yeah, I'm like, I don't think you and I would have been friends, but you're interesting. You learn from it. And I really appreciate you, Joel, because I learned so much from you. And I know all the listeners out there will learn so much from you as well, because it shows that at the end of the day, you are just a simple man with a big heart. That's it. That's it. And everybody who is willing and ready to start the journey of loving yourself and, being on that journey. I'm even wearing your sweatshirt. I am the love of my life.
Oh.
And see, today was a rough day for me, listeners. And I didn't even realize I put this on. And just to remind me, because this was a profound sentence that Joel brought up, where he discovered himself again. And still having the essence of love and understanding to share that with others, right? Morning meditation, you got your workshop, sharing circle in the beautiful soul community, and which I'll be putting all the information down below for you guys so you guys can click on it and have the opportunity to join. My last question for you, Joel, what does the definition of love mean to you?
What a question.
Go with how you feel.
So what comes to mind now is actually rooted in the way I view the world, and it's evolved over time, and it may evolve still. But at its present evolution, it is so much to do with color for me. And what I mean is, it's freedom of condition is the short version from love, right? Acceptance without conditions. And so the way that I think of it so much about color. If you think of the color spectrum of billions and billions and billions of colors, right? Mm-hmm. Different shades of red, blue, orange. And if you think about all the permutations of the way that we can exist in the world, all the personalities, all the ways those would come together with dissonance or consonance, resonance.
Right.
Like there's something artistically pure about our world that gets muddled in the perfectionism and the fear, which is very understandable. And there's something very hard to accept about what's happening in the world with war and innocent people and children being killed.
Yeah, that's a heavy,
and to
heavy
still
part.
hold a place of love for those doing those very immoral, unethical acts. Right? But when you allow yourself to let go of some of that heavy judgment and that fear and expand, there's a space where you realize that each one doing that is hurt. And there is a releasing of condition to recognize I don't agree with what's happening.
Right.
I do not like what's happening.
Right.
But I recognize that what is happening is an expression of the universe. It is an expression of our existence. And there's something that's far beyond my understanding, and I think any human's understanding, that's happening. And I think the path of least resistance forward, as we continue to change the laws and change how we work through conflict and global conflict, is love and openness and letting go of the condition. So recognizing that that's a color that's happening right now. It may be my least favorite color, right?
What is that? You're talking to artists and you're like, least favorite color. Well, no. All colors are beautiful.
Well, there you go. See, that's it. And so that's a hard one to sit with. And I'm not excusing anything that's happening in the world at all. But I'm saying that there is an expanded view of love that transcends these judgments. And for me, that acceptance without condition, acknowledging the pure artistic expression that is this world, the bright, the dull, all of the color frequencies in between. To me, honoring that with reverence, sincerity, as you continue to move through the world, creating and changing the things that you know you're here to create and change. That is love.
That is a beautiful definition of love. That is a beautiful definition. Thank you so much, Joel, for coming in and, speaking from your heart and sharing. I will put all the information down below. A soul called Joel Cross. Please check him out and follow him. I will put all the link and info down below. My name is Naima. This is Let's Talk, every Fridays on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple, and Google. Make sure you guys pass this around for any words of the wisdom, but also remember that you're loved in every way possible, and that I will see you next week. Bye for now. Mwah.